I beg to answer one question. I beg to answer one question only. Why is Doctor Who so popular? Maybe this is a question I can easily answer for myself. But Doctor Who has taken off in ways which I never dreamed of. My interest in the show began in 2005 when it premiered on the Sci-Fi Channel, and the actor playing Doctor Who was Christopher Eccleston. And there was something about this actor. He had so much charm and physical charisma. This guy was an amazing actor. I do not think I would have gotten into Doctor Who if it wasn't for Christopher Eccleston. So back in 2005, I knew absolutely nothing about Doctor Who. I had seen it on maybe the shelves of the old Channel 9 KCTS store, but I had little knowledge of Doctor Who. But my dad did grow up with it. First time round. And for someone like me that had never seen the series period, they really filled me in on the mythology and everything about the character, with the TARDIS and the police box and the Time Lords. So I think I picked up on the show pretty quickly. But what I loved most about the show was Christopher Eccleston. I mean, he played Doctor Who in a way that had never been portrayed before. I mean, he was just so intense and hard-hitting and no nonsense. I mean, I just saw a commercial on the Sci-Fi Channel, and when he said fantastic, I mean, that just got me hooked. And I watched the first 2 episodes of the Doctor Who relaunch, and I just loved it. And I mostly loved Christopher Eccleston's leather jacket. I loved his style. It was so cool. And yeah, he just really helped me get into the show. But little did I know is 13 episodes in, this unknown actor who had done some work in Britain but was generally unheard of in America, dropped out after only 13 episodes. He said it was because he had fear of being typecast, but he later said that it was just personal politics. People didn't think he was being true to the character. So I really enjoyed the first 13 episodes of the Doctor Who relaunch. And I hoped, I didn't even have a thought in my mind that Christopher Eccleston would be leaving. I mean, I thought he'd carry on for a second season. I was for sure. I was very confused at first when he turned into David Tennant. At first I thought he turned into like a teenager or something, like a younger version of himself. I had so little knowledge of the time at the series, I didn't know David Tennant was going to stay, or he was going to stay in that form. And when the second season came back with David Tennant, I was so disappointed. I mean, it was so hard going from Christopher Eccleston to David Tennant. Because like I said, Christopher Eccleston was so intense and physical and hard-hitting and no-nonsense. And David Tennant was kind of silly. But that's kind of what how the character's always been. And I think Christopher Eccleston didn't really help find the show's correct audience. Because, number one, he was portraying the character in his own way. Number two, because he didn't stay true to the character. And number three, he just wasn't attracting all those nerd girls. Which I don't really get. But that's a whole another subject. But David Tennant was a lot more well known. I think that's why the show got really caught off once David Tennant stepped in. I mean, the show exploded with popularity. And everywhere I go, every pop culture compound I go in has tons of Doctor Who merchandise. 25 years ago, I don't think you could even find Doctor Who merchandise in America. I mean, hell, Doctor Who, at the time, 25 years ago, was about as well known as in America as Red Dwarf is. And, like I said, it was just so hard going from Christopher Eccleston to David Tennant. It was a huge letdown. It was a huge disappointment. As a matter of fact, it was such a huge disappointment. I didn't get back into the show for about 3 or 4 years. Like, it was just so hard to go to David Tennant. But I eventually got back into the show and accepted him. Christopher Eccleston just regenerated way too soon. And he's gone on to do G.I. Joe, and of course the recent Thor. I like how I can see him in movies now, but he left Doctor Who way too soon. If there was any way he can come back, and he's reluctant not to, for many reasons. They're not good financial reasons, but every time anyone even mentions Doctor Who to Christopher Eccleston, he gets very hostile. But if there's some way possible, I would like to see Christopher Eccleston as Doctor Who just one more time, because we just didn't get to see enough of him. So, more about David Tennant. He really helped launch the show into this kind of popularity, which I never imagined. It was like Star Wars in Britain years before, but now it's like Star Wars in America now. It's huge. It's a 50-year legacy. It's everywhere you go. And it gets overwhelming sometimes. I wonder how aware some of these fans are about the history of the show. And if they can accept the older episodes of Tom Baker in the same way that they accept the new ones of David Tennant and Matt Smith. And David Tennant, his hair was very ratty, raggedy. He wore this long brown trench coat with this kind of wrinkly suit where the buttons weren't properly done. I kind of admit I did like the style he presented. But I liked Christopher Eccleston's style better, because even my girlfriend says Christopher Eccleston represented a very tough guy image. Was David Tennant's good looks that attracted these fangirls, the reason why the show caught off in such popularity. And I got some Doctor Who books right here, because I've caught up on the series. I really enjoy it. I haven't seen all of the David Tennants or all of the Matt Smiths, but I'm trying to catch up on them. This is kind of a rare. They don't make much of these hardcover ones anymore. I got this at Comic-Con. I think 2 or 3 years ago. Here's another one, the Dalek Handbook. You can't see it too well. I'll move it around. Doctor Who has no name. The Doctor is his alias. And ever since the show started, he's been so mysterious. I mean, they never even bothered to ask his granddaughter what his name is. And he didn't even know that girl, Susan, was even his granddaughter. Every time he comes close to death, he regenerates. This reason being because the actors always want to leave the show. So every time an actor wants to leave, they don't just pull the plug in the show, they find a new actor. Unlike James Bond, that's their excuse. The actor's physical appearance doesn't just suddenly change. The character changes his own physical appearance. He's had 74 companions. There's 800 episodes altogether. It is hard to even... When I first got into the show back in 2005, it is hard to even figure out where to begin. And my best advice is to start with the relaunch, because they fill you in a lot. Then go back to the first series with William Hartnell. Then maybe go to Tom Baker. Tom Baker is the overall best, and he always will be. The worst one was Sylvester McCoy, and I hate how he's in The Hobbit. But Christopher Eccleston will always remain my favorite Doctor. If it wasn't for him, I would have not gotten into the show. But the show has just taken off in such a way that is all this popularity good for the franchise? Are nerd girls happy that the 12th Doctor, I was about to say 13th, sorry, is going to be an old guy again? How long is Doctor Who going to be flowing this way through the currents of space and time? It's exploded. But how long is it going to be before it could come crashing all down? The original show eventually ended, but is all this popularity good for the character? I mean, it gets overwhelming sometimes. And people just, they love David Tennant, they love Matt Smith. Personally, I like Matt Smith a little better than David Tennant, because I never got how people picked up on David Tennant. I mean, he just gets a bit irritating at times. And nerd girls love him because he's kind of funny and whimsical. But I find them sometimes just be a bit annoying. And Matt Smith is also the same way sometimes, but he's a little bit better. And I hope the new Doctor really kind of takes after Tom Baker and Christopher Eccleston and all the ones that people really like and the ones that are just really cool. I mean, they had the Day of the Doctor come out in theaters. And I mean, how long is it going to be before we get an actual Doctor Who movie? And it will be the one that's currently on television. And this franchise has just gone into this territory which I could have never imagined. And it's all because, and it really started off as, again, with David Tennant. I just don't get why. Christopher Eccleston will always be my favorite Doctor. Thank you.